Welcome to another Triathlon podcast, the podcast that brings the electrifying world of triathlons right into your headphones. Journey into captivating conversations, share the excitement of race recaps, enjoy the humor only a triathlete would understand, and join us as we debunk myths and bring you the bare, thrilling truths of the triathlon world. So feel your heart pound, breathe in anticipation, and get ready to dive into the world of triathlon. This is another Triathlon podcast. Enjoy the ride.
Welcome back to another Triathlon podcast brought to you by Mana Apparel. I'm Jenna Sarah and joined as always by my co-hosts Josh and Fede. And this week, we teased it on the last episode. We've got a guest on here who is going to be able to answer all of your questions on the new Ironman and Ironman 70.3 World Championship qualifications because, well, he had a bit of a hand in the doing and the changing of the system. So let's introduce Scott DeRue. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. How are you doing this morning?
I am outstanding, and it's such a privilege to join you all. I'm super excited.
Well, we're glad to have you on here. And, we've definitely had a few questions from our audience about the new qualification system, so it'll be great to get some clarity from you. But first, I kind of want to start off just letting the audience know a little bit more about you and wanted to know kind of how did you come to Ironman?
Yeah, so I've been, part of the Ironman Group now for almost 18 months, I guess it is. And how fast time flies and what a joy it has been. But a bit of an eclectic background. I was a professor and a dean of a business school for 14 years, and then I moved into the health and fitness space and was the president at Equinox, so global luxury fitness. And I just have a real passion for experiences that transform people's lives in positive ways. And so whether the vehicle was education, whether the vehicle was health and fitness, and then when I got a call about the potential of joining the Ironman Group in this role, endurance sports have always been a big part of my life, whether it's been running or mountaineering, or I wasn't a triathlete by background. But endurance sports have always been a big part of my life and really transformative for me. And the opportunity to join such a passionate community, not just our team, but really the community globally, with a deep passion for endurance, a deep passion for triathlon, and how big of a part that is of people's lives and how transformational that is. For me, it's a calling. It's filled with purpose, and I was really excited about the opportunity. And for the last roughly 18 months, it's been just filled with joy. And I've been having a great time. And I've really enjoyed participating in our events, getting to know the community. And I'm really proud and honored to be a part of it, truly.
What's been your favorite part so far? I mean, there's probably a ton of them. It's probably a hard list to narrow down. But what do you think some of your favorite moments have been?
Yeah, Josh, I mean, certainly getting in and participating as an athlete as much as possible. And so, in many cases, I can't participate in the whole event because when I'm there, I'm working. But it's pretty common for me later in the day to grab a bib and get out on the run course and just get to interact with the athletes and the like. So participating has been a lot of fun because you get to see it through the eyes of the athlete, right? And there's nothing more inspirational, but also informative for how we're delivering the experience. Because this isn't just a swim, a bike, and a run. This is an experience. This is a community. And so being a part of it as much as possible has been one of the faves. But there's nothing like standing at a finish line at 11:30 at night, at midnight, and the inspiration. I get goosebumps just thinking about it. There's nothing more inspiring than that moment where you see folks that across, all different backgrounds and experience levels, all the obstacles that all of us have in various forms, overcoming all of that and pushing themselves to discover that they're stronger than they could have even imagined and finishing this moment. It's really special. And so for me, one of my faves is just standing at the finish line at midnight and sharing that experience with our community.
That's really fantastic. Yeah, it's hard to beat that energy. And it really seems like you have a strong team around you. I know I ran into you briefly and met you at Ironman Texas. And I've done a lot on the race organizer side, working with Ironman Calgary 70.3, and it stood out how relaxed and enjoying the day you were. So that really speaks to, you must have a very qualified team if you're out there just cheering people on and enjoying the day as well. I'm sure you had a few other things to do there too.
Yeah, I mean, look, our team, in my opinion, and obviously I'm biased, best in the world, extraordinarily talented at putting on incredible events, and the experience, the expertise that comes with that. But our team is really passionate, and our team really cares, and we're, I think, operating as a really winning, high performing team right now, and really have come together in ways that's inspiring to me and encouraging to me. And so I am relaxed when I show up, because I have a lot of trust and a lot of faith in our team, because I know how talented our team is, but also know how much they care. And when you put those two things together, usually you get some special outcomes. And Ironman Texas was a good example of that. It was an incredible race. And Josh is at Oregon this weekend. He's going to do amazing. And I have all the faith in that team, even though I'll be at Lake Placid. I'll be watching Josh on the tracker.
Boy, no pressure.
No pressure, Josh.
Uh,
I guess in a way, Scott, the way you're putting it is when we're getting ready for a triathlon, the more we are prepared, the more we can get out of the experience. And I guess your team is doing that for you. So when you show up at work, you're prepared, you can deal with anything. And I guess those are the things that you can sort of like translate from business to sport to all of those areas. My question here is, you've been with the Ironman Group for 18 months, like you said. I want to know the experience that you felt this past Ironman World Championships in Taupō, New Zealand, because to me, I believe that has been the best 70.3 World Champs I've ever been to. And I just want to know, how are you gonna try to like step it up or like replicate that, because it was an unbelievable venue.
Yeah, Fed, I appreciate that feedback. And, for me, it's my only 70.3 World Championship. So that's the bar. And we're always looking to raise the bar. But what an incredible experience with, 6,000 athletes from over 100 countries, all in Taupō, which has such a history with Ironman and triathlon. I mean, my first Ironman event that I went to in 2024 was Ironman New Zealand. It was the 45th anniversary of us in New Zealand, and that was my first experience. Was Taupō. And the thing that really struck me about Taupō is how important and special Ironman and triathlon is to their community. I mean, I remember walking into a coffee shop in Taupō, and the froth on the coffee was in the shape of an M dot. And I was like, it was mind blowing. Just, you see the tattoos, but when you see it in the coffee, it's like, it's incredible. And so the 70.3 Worlds last year was amazing. For me, that's the standard. And so how do we raise the bar? And so I'm really looking forward to Nice next year. I think it's going to be an incredible event. It's an iconic destination, such a vibrant city. The course is incredible. It's an honest course. It's, as we all know, it's a championship worthy course. At least by the early season qualifying events that we've been having the last couple weekends, people are pretty excited about 70.3 Worlds in 26 and obviously Kona in 26 as well.
Well, it's a good segue into the World Championship qualification process. But before we get there, you kind of led us down the path of your experience of being at events and seeing that. You most recently were just at Roth and get to witness what that is all about. And you want to talk about triathlon and an entire community coming around. How was that experience? What are some of the takeaways that you had? And as an athlete and a fan of the sport, I appreciate you being there and collaborating with another organization too, because I think that speaks volumes.
Yeah, look, I mean, at the end of the day, I care, deeply. I didn't come from triathlon, but very quickly I've come to love this sport and love the community. And have become very passionate about it. And, Roth is an iconic destination, an iconic race. And one of the first people that I spoke with when I joined the organization a year and a half ago was Felix. And I just wanted to learn and understand sort of what is this thing that people talk about. And obviously we have a history with Roth and Ironman. And so I've been very fortunate, and I feel very privileged to have developed a good friendship with Felix over the last year and a half, and was honored to have the opportunity to join him and his family and their team at Roth. And what they do it's incredible. And there's a lot of magic to that event. And the magic, in many ways, is all about the community, the triathlon community and the local community coming out and supporting it. And it just speaks to the power of not just the event of swim, bike, and run, but the experience that you can curate, that you can create when the power of that community and the magic of everybody coming together with this shared identity and this shared passion. And to me, that's what I really walked away with from Roth, was a deep appreciation for what Felix and his family and his team have been able to create over many years. Is that magic of the community all coming together with that shared passion, and it was an incredible experience. And I felt very privileged to be there, and their friendship means a lot to me, and looking forward to the future as well.
Is that just something that you think over time in each of these locations that Ironman's currently at or going to be at in the future, that is there something on the ground that you think you can do in each of these communities to make it like a benefit? Like I just being here in Oregon for less than 24 hours, I can already see the community preparing for their annual event that they're proud to have. And I would say I've been to races where you don't see that as much and as prominent as it is here in Salem. But I think that is what you're getting at with Roth. Like that, everyone knows this event's coming, and they're preparing for it for next year already, would be my guess. How is that something that your team can bring to each of these locations that you're at, and what do they need to do within the communities to get there? Because it starts with the locals, right?
That's exactly right, Josh. And if you think, I mean, we've got, if you take Ironman and 70.3 together, there's 150 or so events around the world, and some of those have that magic. Many of those have that magic, like the Taupō example, Fed, that you were bringing up. What part of what makes that event so special is not just the 70.3 worlds, but even in sort of a regular basis when we're there. My coffee shop example is just a small example of how the community embraces it and really comes out and helps create that magic. I'll give you from Taupō, I'll give you another example. Every athlete, and this isn't just a world champ thing, this is every year we're there. Every athlete in your welcome pack is getting a handwritten note from one of the school kids in Taupō.
I still have all of the letters that I've done Ironman New Zealand a couple of times, and I still have all of the letters. And those are probably most valuable to me, more than even the medal, because it speaks that the community puts time and effort into supporting the event, and you feel welcome. You feel like you're doing something bigger than yourself. So yeah, I agree with that.
That's exactly right. And so, Josh, you're seeing it in Oregon, like Lake Placid, where I'm flying tomorrow. We got that same experience and relationship with the local community. And so to your point, we're a global brand, but we're a very local experience, right? 150 plus times over every time we show up. And so it's about cultivating the relationship with that local community. And even if they're not a triathlete, getting them to be passionate about the experience and how meaningful and significant this moment is for their local community, their town, their city, and how they are a part of the experience, even if they're not a participant, right? Them spectating, them cheering everybody on, homestays with some of the athletes, like whatever it might be, contributing to the local businesses in the region. We do all the normal economic impact studies and things of that sort. And yeah, we have a big impact when we come to town, whether it's a big city or a small town. But even more important, I think, than the economic impact is the social and the community coming together around something they're passionate about and supporting. And you look at like the volunteers, like in Roth, there's 7,500 volunteers at Roth. It's almost 2 volunteers for every athlete. And they have a waiting list for people to show up to volunteer. Not just the waiting list for the athletes, there's a waiting list for the volunteers, right? And we have that in some of our communities as well. And I think the volunteer aspect of it is really important for just embedding and ingraining yourself in these communities. And that's what I think really contributes to the sport as well. And the overall growth of the sport is you show up and you feel like you're part of something bigger than just a race. And I think that's the magic.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's jump in. I know the main reason people are going to be listening to this episode here is because Ironman has made a number of changes to the World Championships coming in 2026. And first, we had the announcement that it's back to men and women in Kona one day on the Big Island, which personally I always enjoy the energy of so much more. But then we came along with this announcement that you're changing how the qualification is actually done, where previously, if you went to a race, they had a certain number of slots per age group based on the participation and number of athletes in each age group, and then it was disseminated that way. But now it sounds like you're going to more of a performance model. Can you kind of walk us through what that performance model looks like and what the reason behind the change was?
Sure. So I'll start with the reason, and then we can talk about the ins and outs of the model. So at the end of the day, we want the World Championship, in our view, is the greatest celebration of the most competitive and most committed triathletes in the world. Okay. So if we start with that, right, then how do we design a qualification system that supports that aspiration, that vision for what the Ironman and 70.3 World Championship, the ideals of that event are? And in the prior system, which for the most part worked, right? We want the most competitive athletes to be the ones who are qualified. But in the prior system, you had a situation where, and you mentioned it, where you could have athletes who, relative to their peers in their age group, were more competitive than others in other age groups, but weren't getting slots because their age group was underrepresented in that race, right? And then you could have situations where you had less competitive athletes relative to their peers earning qualifying slots. And it's not to say they didn't deserve to be there. That's not what this is about. But they were earning slots, even though they were less competitive than some athletes in other age groups, because their age group was overrepresented in that race. So that was essentially the problem we were trying to solve, and ensuring that regardless of your age, regardless of your gender, the more competitive you are relative to your peers, the more likely you are to earn a qualifying slot. That was the motivation, right? So then the question is, how do you do that, right? And there are other sports that use age grading systems. And so we looked at what those other sports do. We actually started this conversation well before I joined the organization back in 2019. And then the pandemic happened, and we were trying to figure out how do we deal with the pandemic and what that means for the World Championships. And so that conversation got sort of put on the shelf for a minute. And as we started looking at evolving the Ironman World Championship, bringing it back to one day in Kona, we also started to look at, well, how do we evolve the qualifying system to really live up to the ideals of the World Championship event? And so that's really the why, the motivation. By using this age grading system, and happy to answer specific questions about how it works and all of that, we're able to ensure that the most competitive athletes, regardless of age, regardless of gender, are the ones who are earning the qualifying slots.
Yeah, and that's really great to see. Like myself as a female athlete, oftentimes I'd show up to races and there's only ever one slot, sometimes two in the older age group. So it was basically, okay, you have to win to get your spot, right? And sometimes you'd see cases where maybe there are larger men's age groups where they'd be an hour behind the winner and still get a slot, where you could have a female athlete show up 2 minutes behind first place and they don't get it. So personally, I think that's a very cool change, just to really have the most competitive show up and just make it a little bit more blind to gender and age group and stuff. And it seems like you've come up with a fairly well thought out calculation method to do this. Now, we haven't seen too many results yet, but do you want to kind of give us an overview of how you're calculating the different age groups? What was the foundation behind that formula?
Sure. So the way it works is we take the last 5 editions of, I'll use Kona as the example. It's the same system for the 70.3 Worlds. Clearly in the 70.3 Worlds, you don't have Kona. So you take the last 5 editions of wherever those races were. But we take the last 5 editions and we take the top 20% of finishers for each age group. Okay. And so then you have an average finish time for the top 20% in each age group. Okay. You find the fastest age group, which in the case of the Kona standard is men 30-34. Now, that could change over time, right? Because we're going to use a rolling 5 years. So it's possible that some years the fastest age group is not men 30-34, but for now it is. So you take that fastest age group of men 30-34, and then we essentially calculate how much slower is every other age group relative to men 30-34. And so then we know, regardless of whether you're a man or a woman, we know that for your age group, using the top 20%, how much slower every other age group is relative to that men 30-34. Okay? That's the numbers that we published. That's what those numbers represent, is how much slower is each age group relative to the fastest age group, which in this case is men 30-34. Then what we can do is use those ratios to age grade everybody's time in their race. So when Josh races 70.3 Oregon this weekend, we know what the standard is for every age group relative to the fastest, and we can take his time and age grade that time and age grade everybody else's time using those ratios, where now, regardless of what age group you're in or what gender, we can actually compare apples to apples, everybody on the same age graded system. And so it allows us to compare finish times, regardless of age, regardless of gender. How competitive are you relative to your peers? That's how the system works.
And in the 70.3 world, it's still all male, all female, though, right? So in the full distance Ironman, it's one list of finish times adjusted. In 70.3, there's still male against male, female against female, because we have the 2 different days of the world champs, right?
Correct. Because in effect, you have 3 world championship events, right? You have Kona, 1 day combined, and then you have a women's and a men's for 70.3. And so the system is designed accordingly. So we have equal number of qualifying slots for the 70.3 men, 70.3 women. And then we have one combined set of slots for Kona, and we use a combined list. So, the first athlete up, the most competitive athlete for, so the first 2 Ironmans will be Copenhagen and Kalmar in August, right? So pick one. The most competitive athlete, after we allocate the automatic qualifying slots for age group winners, right? Because remember, every age group, so there's, all the men age groups, all the women age groups, the winner still gets an automatic qualifying slot. If the winner doesn't accept, it rolls to second. If second doesn't accept, it rolls to third. So we still have the focus on age group racing dynamic, right? If the third place winner in an age group doesn't accept, that slot goes into the overall performance pool. First up, the most competitive athlete at Ironman Copenhagen could be a 20-year-old woman or a 60-year-old man or whatever. And so it's whoever is most competitive on that day relative to their age group, relative to their peers, rises to the top. And that could be any age group or woman or man. And I would say that the thing that, some people, when we rolled it out, I would say probably the most common question that we got was something along the lines of, well, isn't this just going to make everybody go towards the fastest courses? And the answer is no, because you're still racing the people on that day.
On that course.
On that course, right? And so you're racing people at Oregon this weekend. You're not racing everybody who's doing a 70.3, because you want people competing on that day because it's same course, same conditions, et cetera. And so that's probably the most common sort of misconception or question that we got was people are just going to go to the fastest courses. No, you're still racing everybody on that day on that same course.
But you better go faster.
The Ironman World Championship is the most competitive and committed triathletes in the world.
Was there any discussion around?
I will not qualify.
Yeah,
I am
you'll
happy
get there.
to slow with a smile on my face, but I'm happy to give out the coins to those who do qualify.
Was there any discussion around that top 3 number being different? Because in the age group world, there's a top 5 podium at award ceremony. So was there any discussion around making it top 5 before it went to the general pop pool?
We did, and we talked about a number of different versions. Do you only do it for the winner? Do you do it for top 3? Do you do it for 5? Do you do it for 10? We tested the new system across recent seasons. And in our testing, we're able to look at basically if you do the winner, you will miss some really competitive athletes. And we still wanted to keep that dynamic of age group racing within the age group. And so we didn't want to just go with just the winner. But once you go to like 5 deep or 10 deep, then you start getting into situations where you're giving out more slots that should be in that performance pool because you're going to miss more competitive athletes relative to their peers. And so that going to the top 3 was sort of that optimal point based on at least recent seasons. Obviously, as we shared when we launched it, this is going to be a journey, and we're going to learn. And we're always open to feedback and open to, maybe it's going to perform differently than we expect. And that's one area that we'll watch closely. And maybe it should be, I don't think it's ever just going to be the winner. But, is top 3 right? Is top 5 right? We'll continue to look at that. But right now we're pretty confident that top 3 is right.
And in kind of your testing, you mentioned you went through previous seasons and took a look at these numbers. Did your team find any significant findings on how this might shift the demographics at the World Championships at all, or was it fairly race dependent? Did you see any trends there?
Yeah, so, and I would encourage the community to not look at or not over-rotate or over-index on any specific race because the representation, men, women, and age groups, differs sometimes dramatically depending on what race we're talking about, right? And so I fully expect that somebody's going to sit down and analyze Ironman Kalmar and Ironman Copenhagen and report on how the system is working. And that's going to be a small numbers issue, right? And it may work out the way they want. It may work out different than they want. And that's okay. That's fine. So from an age group representation, and again, this is based on the past. We don't know how it's going to work in the future because we don't know what performances are going to look like in the future. You also don't know who's going to accept slots.
True. Yeah.
Right? And so we can't say with certainty what representation, whether gender or age, how that's going to play out. All we can do is test it on the past to see and test to make sure that the system is robust. So from a representation perspective, there might be some migration or variation in age group. So you might get a little bit more participation from older age groups, maybe, based on the past. And you might get a bit more participation in terms of women. And so if you look in the past at Ironman World Championships, 70.3, the numbers are a little different, but directionally the same. If, historically it was, 26, 27% to maybe 31% women in Ironman World Championships. Looking at recent seasons with the new system in place, probably somewhere between 30 and 40% women at the Ironman World Championship. I don't think it'll be more than that, but I would be surprised based on our testing if it's less than that. But again, where we'll monitor it closely and learn along the way. But we didn't design the system to manufacture an outcome, right? Whether it's age or gender. We designed a system that was based on a set of principles that we believe will reward the most competitive athletes relative to their peers. But we obviously did want to test, understand what it's going to do to the makeup and the experience of the Ironman World Championship. And we're confident in that testing, but obviously we've got to wait and see how it's going to play out. From a gender representation perspective, if you look at the 24 season, there are some events where you would have more women than men qualifying, and they're using the new system. And there are some events where you'd have more men than women qualifying. And that would still be true in most of the events in the 24 season. But there are actually some where it jumps up to 52% of qualifying slots would go to women if you applied the new system to the 24 season. So I think it's going to be super interesting to watch and see how it plays out. And we'll be super transparent about it and continue to learn as we go.
I think it's definitely better than proportional. I think we can all agree to that. And I think it's a great change. And like you said, we'll find out. I think one of the cool things that I like about it is that every 5 years and that number is going to change. And I would imagine 5 years from now, that is going to change substantially as you get more and more competitive people to those world championships. And now all of a sudden it's a very high representation of true high quality performances. And that's going to be a huge factor going forward. And that leads me to my next question too. It's everyone's getting faster. Like we all know pros sub-8, sub-7, like this stuff is crazy. I'm sure in the data, your team started to see how fast our age groupers getting now. That data must be crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually mind-blowing. And, part of it is the advancements in nutrition, technology, et cetera. But you also just have a really passionate community where this is, people optimizing their health, their fitness, and their passion for the sport. I remember I was having a conversation with Mark Allen a few months ago. He's like, "Do you really think that I was 30 or 40 minutes slower than these other guys?" And, and of course, the answer is it's a different generation, right? And you pick your sport, basketball. It doesn't like any sport, right? The sports evolve, and it's hard to compare across generations. And that was a big reason why the rolling 5 years. What we found when we were testing the system is by using the top 20% of the finishers to set the standard, and by using the 5-year rolling, we were able to take out the impact of outliers. And that was important because you don't want somebody who's super fast in a particular age group to set the standard for everybody else, because then everybody else is at a disadvantage. But by taking the top 20% in the rolling 5 years, took out all the oddities associated with the outliers. But then the rolling nature of it, the times likely are going to get faster over time. But that means, all the athletes are getting faster as well. But it still doesn't change the fact that on that day, on that course, you're still racing your peers, right? And it's who's most competitive relative to their peers. And so that age group dynamic and the race on that day is still, that's what that's the magic of the competition. And I think the system's going to hold up and be true to that.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think right now for Kalmar and Copenhagen, the sample size would be good, but it's still going to be a very small sample size. We're going to have to wait and see for a couple of seasons how that develops. But taking on Josh's comment about age groupers getting faster and how we want to celebrate the better athletes in Kona World Championships. And I know you've done a great job at testing pros and all the doping protocols you have and how you test them. Are you going to change some policies or some testing protocols for age groupers that actually win? Or let's say I win Ironman Kalmar. And am I going to get tested? Because it's going to be performance-wise and there's going to be a limited set of slots Are you going to be changing that testing for age groupers?
So you may or may not be aware, we do test age groupers. In our history, we've actually, I believe this is true, I think we've sanctioned more age groupers than pros in our history. Obviously, we don't publish that. We don't, you know, and we don't say specifically what races we're testing or who we're testing, right? And just like on the pro side, they don't know exactly when they're going to be tested, right? And that's both out of competition and in competition. And so, look, we're deeply committed, and I think have demonstrated tremendous leadership over the years in ensuring that long distance triathlon is a clean and fair sport. And our commitment to that ideal is unwavering, and that is true for both pros and age groupers. Are we going to test every age grouper in competition? Of course not. Are we going to start testing age groupers out of competition? Probably not in the same way we do the pros. But as age groupers get more competitive, faster, et cetera, we certainly want to ensure that the sport, not only for pros but for age groupers, is fair and equitable and clean. I think it's critically important for the health of the sport and people's passion for triathlon is that they know when they're showing up at a race, it's a clean race, it's a fair race. And certainly as we move to an even more performance-based qualifying system for world championships, that becomes ever more important.
Yeah, and actually one thing I wanted to bring up, so obviously there's been a lot of conversations around gender disparity with moving Kona back to one day of racing instead of having a separate men's and women's race. There seem to be some rumors going around, and I just heard it on the PTN podcast, that Ironman is unable to fill the women's slots in Kona, which didn't seem quite right to me because I know how many women are excited to have the one day of racing and have that opportunity to race in Kona. But there's a rumor that there's around 1,200 people and they can't give away slots. I just wanted to ask, is that the case? Are they actually having trouble getting women to accept these slots? Or where are we at for the Ironman World Championships this year? Because I know I'm stoked to race it in a few months.
Yeah, I'm stoked to be there too. And I know you're going to do incredible. I don't know where that information is coming from. I've heard the same sort of rumor. So we're not having trouble getting women excited about racing in Kona. That's not the case. We allocated 1,800 slots for Kona this year. And right now, I'm expecting somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,700 athletes. We're not done qualifying. And obviously, people who have accepted slots have to show up and all of that. So I can't say with certainty exactly what the number is going to be. But the 1,200 number is news to me. But I'd heard the same report that you saw.
Yeah, and I just wanted to bring it up because I don't think that's kind of beneficial to the industry. If the industry is hearing that their women aren't showing up for the race day, then they're not going to show up for the women in Kona either. So it's great to get a little bit more clarity around that number.
Yeah, so we're looking into it because I think that report or that news came out this week, and so we're looking into where's it coming from and how are people getting that perception. And if we can help educate folks on what we're seeing, we're certainly willing to do that. Hopefully people have learned pretty quickly that we're trying to be really transparent and help people understand sort of where the sport's at, where Ironman is at, and we'll do the same thing with Kona. But no, we're super excited for Kona this year. I think it's going to be an incredible race and a lot of talented women, both on the pro and the age group side, are showing up, and we expect it to be one big party.
Can't wait.
As always. So let's give Pro Tri News some kudos too while we're at it. So 12 meters or 20 meters? Where?
PTN and those guys, they know I love them, and they've done a great job. And Mark Matthews with our new qualifying system, I told him the other day because he raced Roth and did incredible. I don't know if you saw his performance in Roth, but shout out to Mark.
Trust me, we watch it because we're like, should we challenge them to a race sometime?
Yeah, be careful, be careful. But he did a great job on their social of, and you all did it as well. But I told Mark, I was like, hey, I owe you for taking all those questions in real time and sharing with the community how the new qualifying system is working. And since we were in Germany, he said he was sending me an invoice for a case of beer. But no, they do great work, just like you and many other of the other very passionate podcasting communities. I mean, what you all do to bring our community together and share information and for me, it's also a source of feedback in terms of what's working, what's not working within the community. And so I just have a lot of gratitude for what you all and PTN and many of the others do for the community, because it's that type of engagement that helps us grow the sport. And so I've got nothing but positive things to say about PTN and ATP and many of the others.
Definitely. But do you think, is there a world where we're going to see a change in those drafting rules for the pros versus age groupers? I know a lot of the conversation is around having the same rules for age groupers versus pros. But it seems like there is a lot of interest in that 20 meters. Is that something that is in discussion, or is it kind of firm on 12 meters for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, for the near future, we're going to stay with 12, and I've shared that previously. But we're always looking at it, and it's both a matter of fairness in the race, and we want a fair race, right? There's also all the operational sort of matters that come with it. I mean, if you use a 20-meter draft zone for 3,000 athletes, you get some really challenging operational considerations at transition zones and how many people can exit transition zones at one time and things of that sort. And if we're going to have rules, we have to be able to implement them. So then you get into to questions about, well, should the pros have a different set of rules than, say, the age groupers? And I think that's a valid and a fair sort of conversation. And on some courses, it could work. On other courses, it becomes very challenging to do. Looped bike courses, for example, where you're going to have people riding beside each other with a different set of rules. Could it work? Maybe, but that's something that has to be figured out. So, as I've shared with others previously, I'm not against having the conversation, but it's got to work in a way that we can implement and scale across all of our events in a way that's going to serve the community best. And I think it's also very easy for us to, and I'm new to the community, but it's very easy to forget that it wasn't always 12. It used to be less than 12, right? And we moved it to 12. So we do have a history of evolving and innovating in service of the sport. And as cyclists get faster, like that plays a role here too, right? And so we have evolved the draft zone over the years, and maybe in the future we do as well. But I don't want to commit to something that we can't actually execute and provide a great experience for all of our athletes. But we're always looking to learn, and we're always having that conversation. So again, that conversation will be ongoing. But at this point in time, I would expect it to stay at 12.
I'm just putting it out there. Like, after we see that this performance system works, because I know it's going to work, I definitely am a big. I really liked when the news came out that the system was going to change. But could we see a world where, let's say, the age groupers wanting to qualify for Kona all get seated into like a wave start, and those athletes, like on their form, say, I want to qualify for Kona, and then all of those athletes use, let's say, a technology like Race Ranger, and then they race all the athletes that have a desire to qualify, race amongst themselves, and that's not going to take anything away from other athletes who are doing their first or just want to get the M dot tattoo or everybody races for different reasons. But could there be a possibility of this?
Yeah, it's an interesting idea. I hadn't thought of it, and so it's certainly an interesting idea. Off the top, part of the issue or the question that we'd have to think really carefully about is you have people who are 25 years old and people who are 75 years old who are aiming to qualify, and they compete at very different levels and very different times. And so when you put those folks together in a start wave, you get interesting dynamics for then what happens behind them. Because you might have really fast age groupers who say they're not aiming to qualify, but then are coming up through the pack. And so, you might be very surprised at how sophisticated our models for managing course density are from a swim, from a bike, from a run perspective. And so we'd have to think about sort of that example or that scenario that you outlined and how that would play out. But I hadn't thought about it. So it's certainly something that we could explore.
Something else that I think, like with the age group world, I mean, like Fed said, everyone is just across the board there for different reasons. And there's ways to get to Kona. And I don't think we should ever take away the Ironman Foundation fundraising and that piece. I mean, it's a huge piece of my life, and the philanthropic piece of everything that you guys do is huge for the communities. I just wonder if we're going to evolve 70.3 worlds as well, because I'm a 70.3 guy. I haven't done an Ironman yet. I haven't gotten
You're getting there. You're getting there.
I will. How do you see 70.3 worlds going down? And now we know there's a contract with Nice going back and forth. But once that is up, and if it's not renewed, where do you see 70.3 venturing, and how are you evaluating that right now?
Yeah, I mean, the 70.3 World Championship is the pinnacle event for that middle distance 70.3 distance. So the Ironman World Championship for the Ironman distance, the Ironman 70.3 World Championship, to me, those are same playing field, just different distances, right? And yes, much of the community crosses over, but some of the community does not. The other thing that I love about the Ironman 70.3 World Championship is it brings together the long distance triathletes with those Olympic distance athletes. And we saw that, for example, in Taupō last year, right? Where you've got really exciting racing because of that combination or confluence of those Olympic distance with the long distance coming together to race. I think it's incredibly exciting racing at the 70.3 distance. We're committed to the rotational model that we've had. We also love Nice. And so we'll be in Nice in 26, we'll be in Nice in 28. But we love the rotational aspect. And so I don't expect that rotational aspect of the 70.3 worlds to change at this time. But our commitment to the 70.3 worlds and making that and continue to raise the bar on that being the pinnacle experience for that 70.3 distance, we're really excited about not only where we're at, but where we're going with that event.
Yeah, it definitely keeps it interesting, and just seeing how different athletes perform on different courses, different locations, conditions, and everything there. So obviously this year we've seen the Ironman Pro Series in its second year here, and we're absolutely loving watching the series go down. And it really makes it so that athletes are racing to the very end. But one topic of discussion that's come up a lot is kind of the broadcast of these races. And just have to say, Swansea, kudos. It seemed to have such a good mix between the technology, getting the quad box, being able to see the athletes, and the commentators having someone in studio, and then having two people who are very knowledgeable about the local course, about the athletes. It felt much more like that kind of Tour de France commentary where you got the constant updates and things that were talked about outside of just the racing, which kept it really interesting. So I guess going forward, are you kind of making those things more of the standard within the races? How are you planning on mixing up the commentators? What are we looking at for the next few events?
Yeah, so I mean, you pointed out a number of the innovations that we're making, both in terms of what's happening on screen, from dual screen to quad box to a whole variety of also where the cameras are coming from, right? So even something like an Ironman or 70.3 World Championship, where we'll deploy helicopters to a greater degree than we would normally. But a race like Frankfurt, we've got helicopters in the sky there as well. But what we're able to now do with drones is really interesting, because you can actually get the same footage that you would get from a helicopter, but you can then also get a much closer shot and a different angle than you would. And so the camera technology is evolving. The on-screen technology and what we're able to do from an innovation perspective there is evolving. But then the personalities and the mix of personalities that we're bringing into the commentating and what's happening both in studio, but then what's happening on course. So I'm really proud of our team and how they've continued to evolve and innovate and learn as we go. What is our community responding to, right? What are they engaging with? And a lot of this is new. A lot of this is new for the sport of triathlon. And yes, we've always done sort of versions of television at World Championship events. And there are other triathlon organizations, T100, Roth, et cetera, that are experimenting with different types of broadcasts, different types of media setups. We're all learning from each other and all pushing each other to get better. And I think that's really exciting for the sport. And to me, the broadcast, I mean, we reach millions and millions of people around the world. And that feedback coming from the community of what they're engaging with, what they're not engaging with, is helping us evolve and innovate the viewing experience in a way that's great for our community, great for the partners that get to participate in it. And frankly, it's great for the athletes, right? I mean, from a professional perspective, this is the platform that our pros are excited about, that allow them to build their brands and their partners' brands, and the reach that we have with the Ironman Pro Series and the momentum that has created in professional racing and how much excitement is around it. You just look at the depth and quality of the pro fields that we have at the Ironman Pro Series this year, both on the men and women's side. And I think in large part that's due to the Ironman Pro Series as a product itself, but the experience that we're wrapping around it, both on site as well as with the broadcast, to create the energy, to create the platform, the viewership, and the level of engagement that we're seeing grew last year relative to previous. And then this year, we're blowing last year out of the water as well. So I'm really excited about the direction that the Ironman Pro Series is heading, and the broadcast around it is a big part.
Are you seeing any push, or do you have any push in place relevant to LA 2028 and the build up to that? I think that is going to be a huge driver for the sport at all distances. And it really transcends triathlon when you talk about people like Alex E. and Hayden Wild and Christian Blumenfeld. I mean, these are athletes that can do so much more than just bring others to triathlon, but eyeballs will be on this sport, especially now that it's been announced it's going to be the first one getting a medal at the LA 2028 games, which is really cool. So how are you and your team kind of planning around that over the next few years, and any type of programs that you're working with the U.S. Olympic Committee and the Olympic?
Yeah, we've had a couple conversations with the organizing committees, and it's still early days, right? But I get really excited about it. I mean, if you look at triathlon globally, we will sell out, or pretty close to it. We'll sell out every event in Europe this year, or pretty close to it, and we did last year as well. Oceania, Australia, New Zealand, about the same. This year, we should probably sell out every event or close to it, right? In North America, we'll sell out some events, but not all. And so to me, LA is really interesting because the market in the US and North America broadly has bounced back from the pandemic slower than what we've seen in Europe and Oceania, right? And that's true short course all the way through long, okay? To me, LA 28 is a great opportunity for us to really invest in the North American market and really use it as a launching point to create even more momentum. So we're growing in the US and North America, just not as fast as we've seen in Europe and Oceania. And to me, LA 28 is a great opportunity for us to accelerate the momentum that we are seeing in North America and really build even more excitement, more cultural relevancy around the sport of triathlon, and frankly, make triathlon cool and create the fun, the buzz, the excitement around it. And what we see, if you look at a variety of Olympic sports, and the markets where the Olympics are held, it doesn't happen every Olympics and it doesn't happen for every sport, but oftentimes what you'll see is this boost in popularity or engagement with those sports in those markets where the Olympics are being held. I think we have a huge opportunity to do that for the sport of triathlon in the US and North America to help accelerate that momentum and match what we're seeing in other parts of the world.
Yeah, and outside of that Olympic buzz, kind of what is Ironman doing to kind of grow the sport, reach more people, get more people into it? We have seen a trend towards a younger audience is coming to Ironman. Is that something that you've been specifically targeting, or what are you doing to really try to ensure some more of that growth?
We are. So the sport of triathlon generally, and certainly for Ironman, is younger today than it's ever been, which I think is really exciting for the future of the sport, right? That's not an accident, right? So there are a few things that are happening. One is we're being very intentional. Take, for example, the storytelling, like not just broadcast, but look at what we do on social across a variety of different channels, right? The types of stories that we're telling, how we tell those stories is catering to different audiences. And even the influencers that we partner with, and not only from a pro perspective, but from an age group perspective, our strategy and how we tell stories, what stories we tell, how we tell them, how we distribute them, et cetera, that's evolving. And I think part of that is explaining this move towards a younger audience. It's also true that things that are outside of our control, like the running boom and the fascination with marathons, this isn't the first running boom. It won't be the last. But generally what happens after running booms is people run a few marathons and they're like, what's next? Well, a 70.3 or an Ironman sounds like a next really good challenge, right? And the running boom in 2010 to 2015 was driven by young people, millennials at the time. This running boom is largely being driven by young people, Gen Zs in particular. Where's that audience going to go next? Right? We're starting to see them coming towards triathlon, which is really exciting. So some of it's macro, some of it is what we're doing in terms of how we tell stories, et cetera. So that's part of growing the sport of triathlon, growing the community. We've also, shared previously, we did a survey here recently for women in endurance sports, because as we think about growth opportunities for the sport of triathlon, getting more women into the sport, because you have more women in running, for example, how do you get more women into the sport of triathlon? So we did probably what I believe to be the largest study of women in endurance sports that has ever been done. And it wasn't just triathlon. It was across running and other endurance sports to try and understand what are the motivators, what are the barriers to getting into a sport like triathlon? And then how can we evolve our initiatives and our outreach, our storytelling, et cetera, as well as the actual race experiences itself, like what's happening on race day, what's happening on race weekend, to encourage and break down barriers to more women coming into the sport. And so it's about visibility, it's about the race experience, it's about community. And so we've got a very clear and I believe to be comprehensive strategy for how do we grow more young people into the sport? How do we grow more women into the sport? And frankly, how do we keep triathletes in the sport longer who are already in it, right? There was a really interesting article that came out on Triathlete the other day about, they did some interviews with triathletes who had left the sport, right? And the themes in that were very consistent with what we've been hearing in our research as well. And so it's about how do we bring new people into the sport, young, women, other segments of the market, but also how do we keep people into the sport, right? How do we keep people in the sport? And so we've got dedicated teams and strategies attached to each of those. And it's a long-term investment. You don't move that needle overnight, but it's a long-term investment that over time we've seen progress, and we're optimistic that we'll see progress going forward as well.
Well, we don't want to keep you too much longer. I think I have one more question. Jenna might have one more. I think it's a good segue there too with keeping people in, because this is the first year I haven't signed up for a relay team because I'm doing my own 70.3s, but I love doing the relay option and bringing other people into it. I believe that there is also an opportunity, and I know transition slots are at a number, at a minimum, and we can, that's a number that you can't exceed. But is there a world that you see a competitive relay option within the Ironman 70.3 world, or even long distance? But I know that that's another way to bridge people who are runners, people who are swimmers, people who are cyclists. I don't want to get on a bike because I'm scared, but I'll go swim and compete to try and get to worlds or something. Is that something that's been discussed, or anything that you've seen in your data?
Yeah, we've discussed it, and I too am fascinated by the relays. I don't know that the relay as a competitive path to the World Championship moves the needle as much as looking at how could we expand capacity to relays in our normal events as an onboarding on-ramp to the sport.
Yeah,
right?
gateway.
Exactly. Most people do not get into the sport initially to qualify for the World Championship. Most people. Some do, but most people do not. And so the question is, how do we break down some of those barriers? Maybe it's you don't like swimming, or you're afraid of open water swims, or whatever it may be, or the bike and how do you train and whatnot. But I'm a runner, so I could participate in the sport. I see the excitement and the energy of it, and I see thousands of people doing it safely. And I get maybe, well, if Josh could do it, maybe I could too, right? And that type of experience. So I actually am quite fascinated by the relays. I don't know that the on-ramp or the onboarding, that gateway that you mentioned, is about as much the World Championship as it is just expanding the opportunities for relays.
Well, Scott, thank you so much. We've taken up a lot of your time here, but we truly appreciate that you take that time just to let us know a little bit more about what's going on in the Ironman realm, because I know we're all big fans of the series and the racing ourselves. So thank you so much for joining us today.
It's entirely my pleasure. Thank you for having me, and thank you for everything that you do for our community. And good luck this weekend.
Yeah, good luck at Lake Placid. We did have one question from a pro. When's the Pro Series next year's list coming out? Like, I won't drop her name, but there is a pro that wanted to know. When do you guys plan to normally announce that?
So last year we dropped it in and around Nice, and I would expect around the same time.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. Have a great afternoon, and we will all be watching the racing going down over these next few weeks into the World Championships.
It's exciting. All right. Awesome. Take care, everybody.
Thanks.